Insider, we got a special guest joining us today who recently graduated from our flagship program, Life Mastery Achievers, and she'll be sharing with us in terms of her experience on board and everything in between. So firstly, it's a pleasure to see you today. Let's start with the introductory question in terms of what's your name, where you're currently based, and what you currently do.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Geeta Nastasi. I'm currently based in New York. I live in Long Island, but I work in New York City for one of our major healthcare systems, and I'm the Chief Nursing Informatics Officer. I also have a dual role as Director of the Physician Services Division for about 600 clinics.
Okay. So we're going to essentially start by just kind of rewinding time, just seeing what was essentially happening in your life, Geeta, just before you joined us on board LMA. If you were to just give us like a small glimpse, what were some of the problems you were seeing in your life prior to joining LMA, and how was that really showing up for you?
I believe that it was like a seesaw almost. I would have these highs and lows, and not mentally as in manic depression, but lows and successes in my life, and then highs in where I thought I can conquer the world. And I was really looking for a way to equalize that and sustain that momentum, to be in a very centered place, and to also, if you will, get to a place where I could use more of myself and more of my mind, because I knew there was something more within me that sort of needed to be unleashed, and I really didn't know how to get there. From a success point of view, I look at myself as a success in many aspects, financially, career-wise, etc. But me as a person, I just wanted to grow more. I needed to transform into what I had as my ultimate vision in my head. I just couldn't find a way to unlock that. And so I was asking the question of how can I get there? And that's when I stumbled upon your program, and that was the how for me.
Right. So what would you say was your biggest problem you were experiencing in terms of, let's say, unlocking your full potential? What was the biggest problem you was having in terms of that?
Motivation, focus, and really there was a lot of white noise in my head. I really couldn't see the forest for the trees because there was just so much clutter in my mind. And I couldn't really find a way to declutter myself. And yeah, that was it. There was a lot of noise in my head, which is why I think I mentioned to you before that week 4 was sort of like the aha moment for me. When I got those very pragmatic and repeatable tools, how to close loops and how to declutter, and to kind of stop the distractions so I can really focus on my bigger overarching goals.
Noise in your head. I think a
Yeah.
lot of high achievers definitely can resonate with that, with the amount of pressure that we sometimes tend to feel. What was personally making you feel noise in your head, and that was making you feel, let's say, you needed to declutter? What sort of things were you experiencing?
Well, I put a lot of hours into my work. I mean, we have a 40-hour work week, but nobody really works 40 hours, right? We're always on call. We're
Mm.
always on, to use an IT term. And I could never really get down and prioritize the things I need to do, whether it was personal, with relationships in the past, or where I wanted to go relationship wise, with other hobbies that I needed to get accomplished, with bills. I had a big problem with bills. They would like sit on my table for ages and I wouldn't get to them. And things that I needed to do, even things like doctor's appointments. Like, it wasn't a priority for me. I felt as though work was like my one domain where I can conquer all, and I was good at it, and I stuck with it. And I didn't really want to get out of that comfort zone to address really all other areas of my life. And that was, without going into specific areas, that was really it. I was comfortable with work.
Mm.
And anything else outside of work, I just couldn't get comfortable with.
So what made you feel like you wanted to finally change?
Well, sometimes the way you go into a department store and you try clothes on and you sort of say, okay, well, this one fits, I'm going to take that. Or you're looking for a new car and you say, okay, that car is me.
Mm.
I sort of got to that point where I had been surfing for a while. I'd been looking at various programs, and all the big names that are out there. I won't sort of enumerate them, but I got to the point where I said, okay, well, I am actually 50 years old now. I feel I have a lot more years behind me, probably not so many fit years ahead of me. And it's really time for a change. I mean, for all the hours that I worked, everything that I put into my life, I think when I turned 50, that was like a kind of like a wake up moment for myself that, okay, what am I doing here? I really got to make a move on. And so I started looking for a lot of programs that would sort of give me some practical tools towards this growth and into making sure I was more centered and I had a better equilibrium. And I think that was the aha moment for me. And when I came across your ad on YouTube, because I'm always on YouTube looking at TED Talks and, all these motivational things.
Mm.
And I had looked at a lot of them and I had looked at quite a few ads as well. But I think your ad really resonated with me because it was like the how that fitted me, like a nice suit would or a nice pair of trousers. It was the how that fitted me as far as there was a program for me, because it seemed as though you were saying all the things that we know, that we hear, that we say consistently to ourselves. And it sounded as though you had some sort of a pragmatic approach to how we can actually delve into that at a deeper level and give us repeatable tools if we were to join. And that's really what I was looking for, that how.
Okay. So it's quite different from other LMA students. You was actually actively looking for a program. So
Mm-hmm.
had you enrolled in other programs prior to joining LMA?
Well, besides looking at a lot of videos online, etc., I had actually done the Silver Method.
Okay.
And the Silver Method I did maybe about, maybe 25, 30 years ago. But, practice makes perfect, right? And I had stopped practicing.
Mm.
But it did give me a launching point for how I can think and how I could stay positive. Of course, life always gets in the way. And, if you don't practice, then you're sort of out of luck. But that's really the only program that I did. But, there comes a point in your life where you sort of have to make a decision and stick with it. And that decision for me, it was time for me to grow, to change, to be the best version of myself. And so, it wasn't so much about all these years that I was really looking for a program. It was the time for me within myself was right for me. I just felt as though the time was right for me. And it was time for me to start looking. And so I started looking again. And it was probably about 2 years before I actually made the decision to join the LMA program.
Okay. So you essentially came across that opportunity on that webinar, the free webinar. Did you have any fears or any doubts prior to making that decision to enroll? If you
Absolutely. Yeah, sure I did, because, you get cynical as you grow older, right? And, in my line of work, I see a lot of pitches. And sometimes it sounds really, really great because anybody can sell you something if you really want to be sold. But when it came time for delivery, I saw a lot of flops and failures. So I was very cynical going into it. Thinking, well, he's talking a really good talk here, but let me see, what he can really deliver. But like I said, it was, you speak about heart intuition. It was that little extra thing, that heart intuition that sort of made me connect with you. And I said, let me give it a try. Let me see where this leads. And week 1, week 2, week 3, I was really trying to connect. And I think it wasn't until week 4, like I mentioned repeatedly, but it was really week 4 for me that it sort of all came together.
So what ended up happening essentially in week 4 that made it come together?
Well, weeks 1, 2, and 3 were fantastic. Not to take away anything from those sessions. It was about the theory and delving deeper and, looking at the root cause of things. But it was week 4 that I found that I had these exercises to do that sort of really resonated with me. Because sometimes when you have something that's hanging over you that seems so huge and so looming, it's really hard to break it apart. And what week 4 did was sort of break it apart into smallable, actionable, pragmatic, repeatable steps. So it was the things like making a list, right? To get rid of this white noise, which was a real problem for me. Make a list of everything that's like an open loop or distraction, something that's unfulfilled. And whether it was relationships or cleaning out my garage or paying bills, or maybe, I had a altercation with friends in the past and I never reconnected with them. I made a list of everything because that's something I could do. That was like easy for me. And it was, wow, this is taking a to-do list to a whole new level. And so I made a to-do list. And then what I did was I triaged it, right? So I triaged it by order of priority.
Mhm.
And then I also triaged it by using the steps that you talked about, what's within your domain of control, what's outside your control, and what you can delegate. And that was like easy for me. And I began to breathe a lot easier, and I began to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And just making that to-do list of everything. And I'm still adding to that list, but I'm also crossing things off that list. And I found that every small win that I had sort of motivated me to have a bigger win, right? So I finally tackled that mountain of bills that I had piling up on my table, and I was setting stuff up on, automatic payments, etc. I reached out to people in the past that sort of had upset me, and that still sort of left a bad taste in my mouth, and I sort of made my peace with them. So I was like checking things off the list. I delegated a lot of things like household chores and maintenance that I meant to do to other people, and it was like this weight was slowly lifting off my shoulder. And so that gave me that step. The other thing that was pretty important for me that I sort of resonated with was making a plan at the start of every day. Now, I think, before this program, that I was pretty organized when it came to my calendar, right? Because I had my Microsoft Outlook. I was pretty good with work-related meetings, but I sort of took it a step further, and I planned out all the birthdays and all the important events and all my doctor's appointments, and I actually made time for things. But I took it that step further. But at the start of every day, I would get up in the morning, spend a few minutes in bed, and sort of think about my day really purposefully and specifically. And that's what I never used to do, is that specific way of thinking about things.
Mm.
And I would start my day with what I hope to accomplish. And at the end of the day, and I think you had spoken about this in the previous session, I would look in the mirror or just talk to myself and tell myself what I accomplished today, what I did really well, and what I needed to improve on. And just those two small things, making a list, triaging it, and then being specific with each single day, was really helpful for me.
I think you're the only person who's ever said on the interview, week 4 was the fave. Normally I hear week 2 of week 1, week 4. That's the first for me. So you're saying it essentially made you take action on getting the bills paid or whatever it may be, getting rid of the white noise. So there's a lot of stuff that people would be hearing right now thinking that kind of feels like I already know that stuff in terms of I should be doing that. So what made you execute that? What made you actually take action on getting your life organized?
What was the theory behind why you said we should do it, right? About if we don't focus, we can't get results. And if we can't focus, we can't be self-disciplined. And everything sort of led one into the other, right? It was like this snowball effect. And without self-discipline, you can't have these results. And you can't really develop and ultimately a trusted mindset. But really for me, Tim, I think, no matter how many books I read or how many programs I attend, if I can't have my focus, then it's all for naught. And I all actually said in one of my video testimonials that I wish focus and how to get these steps would actually be in week 1 or week 2 or earlier, because we go through the program, but if we don't get rid of the white noise, we can't really focus on the rest of the program. So for me, learning how to focus and declutter and clear that white noise was really important to me. And if had it come before, maybe I would have told you week 1 or week 2 was my favorite session, and not a takeaway from the program at all. But for me, that's what worked.
Right. What would you say overall in terms of what LMA incorporates, such as community, mentorship, live virtual event, everything this course incorporates? What surprised you the most overall?
I think when I was seeing the responses on the chats and how people were really sort of connecting and getting into this, I was like, wow, there's a whole community of people out there that this program has brought together, and they're all like-minded. And it was like this tidal wave of positive energy that was sort of taking me along. And that's really what I needed, because, when you're an individual trying to make it on your own, it's really tough. I mean, I have my highs and lows. I spoke about that. But now I had this sort of tidal wave of sustainment that would just sort of take me through. And I realized there was a lot of people that felt the same way and that really were connecting with what you were saying. And I thought, okay, well, week 1, I saw that. And that's, I got up the the courage and the motivation to actually do week 2, because I saw how people were really, born ready and all these wonderful comments. And I'm saying, okay, well, maybe it's just me being stuck in my head. If I stick with this longer, I can get to where those people are, what they're saying and what they're feeling. And one, that was the first thing. The second thing is, I think that you've really done your research. I mean, I've looked at a lot of, not all, obviously, I'm probably just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to motivational speakers, etc. But from what I see, I think you've taken the best of a lot of worlds. A lot of the research that's out there, I think your program is very research based. Even though you don't actually say that, I can tell by the way you phrase things, and by the, even the deep breathing exercises and the focus, and the visualization and how to get there. That's a common theme in any sort of motivational program and personal development program. So I think what you've done is you've taken a lot of the information out there and you've distilled this into a very short, because we all have a short attention span. So 6 weeks, I think that's a good time frame. And you've compressed and distilled that into these very pragmatic steps that we can follow to sort of sustain us even after we leave the class, because we have these workbooks, we have your videos, and we can always go back to it. And I find myself, which I've never done before, actually going back to my notes and looking at things that you may have said that I learned into the program, and just add into my little to-do list of things that I would like to do to improve myself. So yes, so thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So other than week 4 then, what would you say was your fave module other than week 4, and why?
So week 4 was the aha moment. Week 5 was actually the best for me, because that's when we talked about, I believe, scarcity versus the abundant mindset. And with that was the talk about emotions and how emotions create this energy. And I was like, wow, that's such a simple way of looking at it. And, whenever I feel sad or depressed or pissed off or whatever else, that's really negative. And how can I change from feeling that and kind of converting that into something positive? And that's when I realized I just had to let go of all the negative energy, because it was holding me back. Because in addition to all the white noise, now I had my steps for removing white noise. This was like the final barrier for me. It was like being optimistic versus pessimistic. And what was the easiest way to do that for me is to really just let go. And I just use the word let go over and over again, that I just have to let go of everything that's negative. And I know I speak to a lot of people, and a lot of people have trouble letting go of, grievances and grudges and, all these negative things. And I found it very easy for me to just say, let go of it. And I have let go. I mean, not 100%. I'm sure there's a lot of subconscious, but the way you made it so simple, either be pessimistic or be optimistic. And if you're optimistic, you're going to find that you're reflecting that to other people. You're going to reflect that into the universe, and it's going to be reflected back to you. So why not do it? I mean, if you're giving me the advice, and you've gotten this advice from the thousands of people you've spoken to the hundreds of programs you looked at, well, I would be a fool not to take that advice.
So what would you say overall made you feel the happiest about the LMA course?
I found a program that I believe in, that I started off very cynically, but I saw it actually has a lot of pathways to get to my goal. And it doesn't just give me one pathway, it gives me several ways. And I resonated with 2 of them. I'm sure other people might give you others that are different for them. But I think what it is, it's like it gave everybody different pathways to get to the same goal, which is really being the best version of ourselves.
Okay. So you're saying, yeah, earlier you started off quite cynical, which will be quite typical with a thinker like yourself. You remind me of quite a strategic, systematic thinker. So what made you, after joining LMA, kind of believe? What is it that you experienced that made you say, yeah, actually, maybe there is more to this? Was it just week 4, or was it earlier in the modules you discovered that?
Well, all early in the modules, it was sort of cemented in my brain that, you know, the information you were relaying was actually very good, very sound, and that you can't be superficial, obviously, right? So we're sort of building the base that in order to get to really know yourself, you had to dig deep. Week 4 and onwards sort of built on that platform, gave me some actionable, pragmatic steps, and sort of week 5 just sort of cemented it. So that's sort of where I got to it. And then when I started implementing, and I really started implementing in week 4, I think that's when I started actually posting regularly all the exercises from days 1 to 6, because now I started feeling motivated. And when I started talking, because I don't share, I'm very, very bad at sharing. I never had a Facebook account, and I never had a social media account before I joined this program. So you can imagine this is a really big step for me, because I don't like myself out there in social media. So the fact that I even decided, Tim, to open a Facebook account and do these exercises, that was already a win for me, and in a way a win for you, because you were already helping me. And then when I started talking, I felt as though I was really releasing a lot of stress. And it was like talking to myself as well about all the things that I had learned. And it like imprinted it on my brain that I was freeing myself. And the more I talked, the more I found that it was helping me. And I didn't mind talking, and I became very excited. And when I become excited, I know I'm getting motivated. So I went from cynical to, okay, let's give this a shot, to really taking your advice and doing the video testimonials and getting motivated, and then looking at a lot of the other people who were posting, looking at their experiences and how it was helping them. And so this shared community and this idea of talking things out, I think is really what I got from it, and that I should not be afraid or ashamed to share. Why should I be? Why do I have to believe that I need to be private and sort everything out of myself? You know, no man's an island here. And so, yeah, I mean, you got me talking.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting, because so many people have said very similar thing, as in, and people listening right now, we're probably scaring them just talk about Facebook, because I think, you know, at the end of the day, not everybody's biggest fan of Facebook, nor am I, to be honest, but we've incorporated it because of the benefits of having a community. But what made you personally say after week 4 or during week 4, whatever it may be, that I want to at least give it a try? What made you put that fear aside or that doubt aside and say, yeah, let me try the live stream?
I think you've asked me that question in so many forms that I'm really beginning to realize what you're after now. I think what it was is that I saw improvement, Tim. I saw improvement. I was addressing the things that made me uncomfortable: relationships, bills, household. It was more than work that I was doing. So I saw that shift, if you will,
Right.
from just being work-centric to being me, and addressing things in all aspects of my life. And so I was doing that now, which I hadn't done before. And one of the things that stuck out with me whenever I would get really, do I really want to do this? I could be doing X, Y, and Z. I remember that little voice in the back of my head saying, resistance equals growth. So if you feel, like you don't want to do this, do it, because that means you're growing. But so anyway, I was seeing results. I was getting motivated, and I didn't want to lose that. It came to an end week 6, and I said, you know what, I need to continue down this path, because I was making these shifts in my life within 3 weeks, weeks 4, 5, and 6, that I hadn't made in years. And if I could do this in weeks, I have the rest of my life to devote towards self-improvement. So, I went on there, I took your interviews, interviewed with Alice, interviewed with you. I really wanted to get to that final destination in Thailand in May, because I really want to take this to the end, and I'm really excited to see where it leads me. Like I said, 3 weeks of improvement over years of improvement. Why wouldn't I want to continue?
Right. Okay. That makes sense for me now. So it made you kind of believe, essentially,
Yes.
from just seeing some results in your life. And that's why you did Facebook Live. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. I always wonder why somebody ends up taking action after they've resisted for so long, and you were saying you're resisting social media for a long time. So that helps me to clarify that side. So firstly, it's been a pleasure, journeying with you. And like I said, Geeta, it's just been, like I was saying on the final week, it's just a start, right? It's just the beginning. Every day's day 1 after all. So
Mhm.
this is going to be the final question before we start wrapping up here. What advice would you give to somebody right now who may be considering enrolling in the LMA course, but they've never joined such a program before? What advice would you give, having now been through the journey yourself?
Just do it. Just take a chance and take a leap of faith and just do it. The more you linger and the more you procrastinate, you're just letting time pass by where you can be happier and where you could be working towards being the best of you possible. Don't be me. It took me over 30 years to get to this point, and 30 years in 3 weeks. Wow, what a difference. And you could be me as well. You can be on your way.
Well, it's been a pleasure journey with you, but we've got, of course, all the other journeys coming up. So let's keep doing whatever it takes. And so just want to say, of course, thank you. But this is just the beginning, okay? For the rest of you watching, I just want to also say thank you so much for your time. And as always, follow your heart and take action. And let's create the life you're truly born to live. Take care.